Yes,
Yeah,
it's working. Oh, God. Ah,
you headed being, you're here.
Mercury is not even retrograde. I see there's a few of my fans watching, and they know that I'm terrible with technology, so it's all good. Let's get into it.
I actually really enjoyed it. So because this will be cut off of the recording in the end, so we just tried a few times to get it going, and there were some technical issues. And I love it because I love feeling like a boomer, and I feel more and more like a boomer with every year that passes. So this just proves it.
I can relate to that so much.
Well, it's great to have you here today, and I'm excited for us to chat. And for everyone joining in now, what we're doing is this series called Painterview, where I'm David Pug, artist, and I do portrait paintings, and a lot of it's focused on queer figures, drag, and lots of queer creatives, especially. So today, I'm going to be doing a digital portrait because I'm a boomer and I've just started using digital work. Of Chelsea Boy, and we're going to be talking about all sorts of things like creativity and queerness and mental health, and just getting to know each other and hearing more about your story. So I'm excited to jump into that. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good, actually. I am feeling fresh. I'm feeling rested. I'm feeling rejuvenated. So I'm ready to paint. And yeah, for the past few weeks, I've taken it a little bit more easy because I think I'm just very aware of the fact that what happened last year, like the experience of Drag Race and everything that came with it, is a lot for one person to handle, and I'm very aware of that. So I'm taking a lot of time. I'm investing a lot of time in myself, especially the past few weeks, to like get back into my body, get back into my soul, start feeling, um, start feeling more rested, and so I can come back with new, fresh ideas and get creative really soon again. I do have a bunch of ideas ready, so I'm really excited to start working on those. And for now, I'm just taking a little bit of time because that's just really, I know that I need it, and we are so often pushed into this whole roller coaster of keep it going. And for now, I just need to pause that for a moment. So yeah, so that's how I'm doing. How are you doing?
That's great. I think that's so great that you're like really looking after your mental health in your way and doing what's right for you. Because I could imagine, because as everyone that follows you knows, you've just been on Drag Race Holland and had this crazy experience, of getting so much more exposure, and yeah, it must be really tricky to navigate. And I like have a lot of questions about that to get into. But you asked me how I'm doing. I'm doing good. I'm actually doing really great. So yeah,
Oh,
strangely. And obviously that's a very obnoxious thing to say right now, so we're not going to talk about me, but I'm feeling good. So
no, that's good. That's good.
yeah, it's a tricky one. Obviously, ups and downs with what's going on in the world at the moment, but I think like one of the things that I really value in my life is mental health, and I'm currently studying to be a counselor. So I found that the more that I learn about that, the more valuable it's being at this period of time. So, and that's one of the things that I feel really passionately about talking openly about mental health with people, is that it's something that we all experience. And there's so many skills that we can learn, and a lot of them are really simple and they can make such a huge difference, but it's not the kind of thing that's currently taught in schools. It's not the kind of thing that is like common everyday knowledge that you have to have the privilege of going to therapy to learn it a lot of the time. So I think I'm just really benefiting from having had that privilege of learning those types of mental health skills. So I feel really good at the moment. And one of the things when we were talking about this discussion that you touched about was um, for you, like feeling that now you're in the public eye, wanting to look after your mental health in order to sort of set an example, or to be able to, well, you can phrase it since it was in your words. I know that you're thinking about yourself and how that then relates to other people and the people that follow you. And I thought that was really interesting topic and very important.
Yeah, I think, like you said, like learning those tools is amazing. I've also owned a lot of those tools, and I think those tools are still with me, and I still own them, and I still practice them. I just need to spend more time doing so, since since it was such a crazy experience last year, and for me, I think the layer that came with it also is that by the way, in the meantime, I'm gonna just start gluing my eyebrows down and start doing my makeup.
Oh my god! So, yeah, we totally blew past that. I want to know what you, because you're going to be painting at the same time. What are you planning? What are you gonna do?
I'm gonna do a white face. That's always what I kind of start off with, and I'm gonna go in with some crazy color contour. I have to so I put these like little stickers on my sticks because I think I have like 10 of these sticks. It's crazy, in all 50 types of colors because I use that as my base. So today I think I'm gonna work with red and blue, my two faves, and we're gonna make kind of like a mask thingy. And yeah, we're gonna see where we're gonna go. I always, when I paint, I always completely leave it to the process. I see where I'm going, and I just keep looking at my face in order to see like, okay, what does it need? What color does it need? Or all of that. So I'm gonna get started on that.
So you don't with like a makeup face chart. You kind of just explore it as it goes.
I must say I do make face charts every now and then, and sometimes I go by them. But then at the end of the process, it always looks nothing like it because something can work in a face chart, but then once you put it on, you don't want to like force yourself to stick with the face chart because sometimes it just doesn't work and it needs something else, a different shape or a different color added or something like that. I think that's something you might know, like having an idea and then executing it always turns out completely different. And that's the beauty of art, I think. Like, trust the process, see where it takes you, and let the moment be the magic.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's nice to have, because I also really like sketching and trying out ideas beforehand, because often you can go to a place that you wouldn't necessarily go like on the fly, but then to have that combination of like, I'm going to plan and think about what I'm doing and be intentional, but then I'm also going to let my intuitive creativity take over and just see where that flies to. I think that like combination is really nice.
Yeah, I think you just give such beautiful words to what I was trying to express. Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, you expressed it great. I think my communication style is I just use a lot of words and I move my hands a lot, so people think that I'm saying something interesting.
Yeah, that's a good one. Like, I think you have great vocabulary. I know how to express myself, but it's always a matter of finding the right words while I'm talking. Um, yeah.
Do you feel, because primarily with drag, a lot of it's visual, and
Yeah.
so do you feel comfortable expressing yourself, like speaking or writing or things like that, or do you find it's more the images that work for you?
Well, I kind of tried. I'm kind of trying to kind of let go of the discipline that I'm working in, because I think at the end of the day, as an artist, you're a visionary, and I don't think you should um, pinpoint yourself to one discipline. I think art is a language, and you can use it in so many different ways. So I'm trying to. Um, to really make myself own all of those different ways of communicating my arts, and I think, yeah, obviously, definitely visually, uh, that's my forte. Like, that's definitely one of my fortes. But I think, especially in the past year, I've learned so much when it comes to expressing myself verbally, when it comes to finding different layers in my art when I'm performing. Um, uh, I learned a lot on digital arts, like uh, video editing, um, photo editing. So I think there's so many ways to express your art, and I think it would be a pity to just use one or two. When you can yeah, have it be layered with so many yeah, with so many different layers. Am I
Mm-hmm.
making any sense?
You're making complete sense because I feel that's one of the beautiful things about drag as well is that it already encompasses so many different mediums that I think I've heard you say this before as well. That's what attracted you to it is that you didn't have to pick just one. You're able to like do so like photography and design and fashion and performance and painting and everything in one.
Absolutely, that's exactly why I started drag, because it encompasses so many different types of arts, like you're saying. And also, I think what's very important to mention is that, in my opinion, visuals, aesthetic, don't mean a whole lot if there's not a story and a or even an emotion or a some type of a manifestation that goes beyond that aesthetic. If that's not behind it, then I find it to be a bit of empty shell. If that makes sense, like I think it's very important to know what you're expressing with your visuals and why where those come from and what's behind them, what story is behind them, what are they based on, and that's why I think for me it's so important to learn how to not just express those visuals but also learn how to express what's behind it and what inspires me, and find better words and better ways of saying, like, yeah, of expressing what inspires me, and how I get to my ideas and concepts. How does that work for you?
I think it really resonates with me, and I think similarly to what you said before, like art is a language. I really liked that phrase you used because I always think about art as communication, and it's no matter what medium you use, whether it's painting or drag or dancing or whatever it is, like we're always trying to express an idea, and we're trying to communicate something to someone. Sometimes maybe we don't even know what that is. Like there's loads of work that I've done where it's taken me a couple years afterwards to realize, oh, this is what I was trying to say. I just didn't even know it myself. And so I like that emphasis on meaning and communication and narrative that you're describing. And I think what you're saying about kind of aesthetic without a message can come across kind of just a bit empty. Um, that definitely resonates with me as well because I think like now we're in this really amazing age where we can see so much art all the time online, right? And it's super inspiring, but I think it can often, because we're all sharing ideas so fast, is that sometimes people can kind of take inspiration from others' work without really engaging deeply in what that work is and what that means. And I think for me, that's when you have aesthetic without message, because this person is kind of like taking bits and pieces from everyone else without really thinking about, well, what am I trying to say? Like what's different about me? What is my like unique voice? And I'm sure that's always existed. It's just I notice it's so easy to do now compared to before. Oh my god, I sound like even more of a boomer now.
Well, no, I think you're completely right. I think imagine you have a great sense of fashion and a great sense of aesthetic, and you know how to do makeup. You have all those skills. How much more powerful would it be if you can use your experience and your emotions and your stories as a fuel to create those visuals, like because then it becomes so much more personal, and I really love seeing personal art, that tells me a little bit about the person who created it, and it's not just random. I want your art to tell me a little bit more about who you are, especially when we're talking about drag. I think what is your style of drag? Tell me about who you are as a person, how you look at life.
Yeah, definitely. And I've seen that come up on Drag Race as well, actually, interestingly, how they often talk about wanting the vulnerability and wanting this authenticity, and that they're not looking for a perfect drag artist, but they're looking for you to be your like most authentic self. And that aspect of the show has always really resonated with me, because it's encouraging people, yes, to like produce work that's high quality, but also to just be like your real self.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can fully do that. Yeah.
So so for you, what is that for you at the moment? Like, what is your that message behind the aesthetics that you do that really drives you forward?
Well, I created Chelsea Boy from a place that kind of sits in my dreams. And when I'm talking about dreams, I don't even mean the metaphorical, like I'm not talking about my ambitions. I'm not talking about my hopes or illusions or whatever. I'm literally talking about when I'm going to bed at night, fall asleep and dream. Um, it often takes me to this place that I can only express. I cannot rationally express it. I can only do that with my art. And it's this place where um, where I'm alone but not lonely. I'm far away from home, but I also feel at home. There's polarity, this contrast that I think um, um, it's just so interesting to me. Like I feel completely liberated. I feel completely free in that place, and this is why almost always I am alone on stage. Like I never work with backup dancers. Like I want to portray that person who's standing on stage by themselves or is alone in a place, is alone in a room, and can sit with themselves and be with themselves and celebrate themselves, or on the opposite, be maybe afraid of that loneliness, since we're all born alone, if that makes sense. We're born alone, we die alone, and what happens in between is like all these amazing, beautiful, magical connections that we can make with other people. But at the same time, you're still alone and you still got to live your life yourself. You got to do it yourself. You don't have to do it alone, but you have to do it yourself at the end of the day. And I think so those type of subjects, I think that's what a lot of my art is revolving around, is that self-identity and those emotions like loneliness or fear and how we express them. I think I think that's what my drag is based around. And since it's kind of it feels so unfamiliar to me, it takes me to this like strange place that I that would be a place that I wouldn't especially recognize on Earth. I think that's why I came up with this person, that's this character that's it's kind of on the crossroad between a human, a robot, and an alien. It's kind of in between there. And a lot of times people like to, when they look at my drag, they like to describe it as alien drag, you know. And I love that element. It is definitely a part that's in my drag. But there's the human element as well, which is for me super important. And I think there's the robot as well, like programmed to think in a certain way, since we're all programmed by society to think in a certain way. So that's that metaphor. And so I play with all of those elements and I kind of put them in a blender and Chelsea Boy, boom. That's kind of how it works for me. Yeah. And I'm still exploring it. That's a beautiful thing. I still haven't figured out. It's kind of like an onion, you know, when you peel an onion down, you have layer after layer, and for some reason it never ends. It never seems to end. And I think that's the beautiful thing about life and about the expression of the discovery of who you are as a person and your drag. So yeah, that's the magic of drag.
That's beautiful. It definitely, it's, as you said at the end, it makes me, that's what I was thinking, is that it sounds like you're really discovering yourself and discovering new things about yourself through the visual of drag in there. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That's exactly what I do. Like I literally use Chelsea Boy as a vessel for self-discovery, self-exploration, to learn more about my identity. I think I said it before in an interview where, like I've spent so much of my teenage years after I came out celebrating my feminine side and not my masculine side, because for me, for some reason, masculinity was linked to heteronormativity. Until at one point I learned that, between like there's both a masculine and a feminine in all of us, and then everything that sits in between as well. But that masculine side is there as well. And once I started realizing that, and that it wasn't a dirty thing, I became much more of a complete person. And then it only took, I think it only took, well, 2 years, actually, 2 years later only. I think during Drag Race, I kind of realized and found out that discovery of masculinity and femininity that I was having on a personal scale, I was doing the exact same thing with my drag, because I started my drag as a feminine character. And then at one point I stopped doing it because it didn't make sense to me anymore, because it didn't feel complete. And then I stopped drag for a while. It's like, I don't want to do something that I don't feel makes any sense to myself, because if I cannot carry it myself, then how am I supposed to like be a convincing or a good drag queen? So I kind of stopped doing drag for a while then, until I discovered like, oh, there's that masculine side as well. And then I came up with this more balanced gender fuck being that says so much more about who I am as a person and how I look at gender. By the way, I'm painting. The eyebrows, they always take, I think, about 20. I don't know how long we're in, actually, but they always take up so much time. And then once they're done, I start going, and it's like, boom, 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 and then I'm done.
It's funny that, isn't it, how like that one stage can take such a long time, and then everything else can just speed on from that.
Yeah, I always flow.
Yeah, what you're saying really resonates with me, this idea of, it sounds like what you were doing with drag is like following what is instinctual, like this dream element, what's coming from you. And then kind of like I said, I've heard before as well, actually, that sometimes that doesn't make sense until a bit later on or while you're doing it. And I think that's one of the really beautiful things about art, is that like, it doesn't have to make sense at the time, because it's your mind and your body or your spirit is telling you something. Like if you have an impulse to do something, there's something there, even if you don't know what it is yet. And I think art really encourages us to follow that and to not be ashamed of that, and to, even if it's something dark, like some people's work is really dark because they need to explore that themselves. And if you if you shut it off, it's going to cause these issues in yourself. And like, I think that's really beautiful as well. It's all about like self-discovery, isn't it? Like you're finding with your drag character as well. And I think that's really beautiful.
Absolutely. And it's literally listening to what your body is telling you, because your emotions are not just sitting in your heart or in your stomach, they are sitting in every organ that you have. Like there are even specific organs that are linked to specific emotions. And if you know how to unlock all of those different things, and you know how to follow your instinct and your different emotions that sit in different places of your body, and you put that into your art, I think that's the most fabulous art there is. Like art that that really grabs you by the balls. Can I say it like that? I don't know. It's not the best.
Is that the right saying?
Have balls. If you don't have balls, it grabs you by the, I don't know, by the gut.
It grabs you.
It grabs you. Thank you so much. I kind of got stuck there. So I think that's definitely that for me is the most exciting art. Now, can I ask you a question? Because before you basically said, I'm doing well. I'm kind of almost afraid to say that I'm doing well because so many people are struggling during these times, right? So I think it's actually very interesting to learn more about what are those tools, what kind of things are you doing throughout your day or throughout your week to take care of your mental health. I want to learn. You viewers might want to learn?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I'm kind of like with you with your drag. You're learning more every day that you do it. With me, with mental health, the more that I'm learning, the more that I learn. That sounds like an obvious statement, but the main thing I've come across is that it really is individual to every person. And I think that this like generalized advice of like, oh, if you go outside and exercise, like make sure that you talk to friends, and there's loads of things like that, and we can definitely talk about those because they are super useful. But I think what kind of gets lost there a little bit is that just like art, actually, interestingly, it is really individual to each person, and like it's about really doing that self-discovery to find what it is that is causing you difficulty. Like if because some people can stay indoors all day and not talk to anyone, and they can, well, some people choose to do that. Some people choose to go and live on a mountain and not talk to anyone for hundreds of like their whole lifetime, and they have a wonderful life. But for someone else, it's absolute torture. And so I think it really is all about your individual perception, and we focus so much on the external all the time. Like, what job am I doing? How much money do I have? What are my relationships like? Where do I live, etc. And those things are obviously important. I'm not saying they're not, but I think that we focus on those so much that we forget that actually it's our perception of those things that really creates our happiness or not, or creates our pain or not. Like pain and suffering are two like very different things. Like pain is immediate, suffering is something that goes on for a long time and involves how we're perceiving that situation and that pain. So I think that's what I would say to people is like, in whatever way you can, either whether that's through therapy if you can afford it, or there's a lot of affordable options for therapy. If anyone wants to message me about that, I'm happy to advise you for where you're living to see if it's an option for you. But it really is this introspective personal journey. And so for me, what really helps is I've been in trauma therapy now for like 4 months, and that's like transformed my mental health in a way that even from 6 months ago is like such a huge change. And I didn't even know that I had trauma. Really, because I always you had to have had like, my family's lovely. I have a great relationship with my family, and I thought trauma is a very different thing to what it can be, and it's obviously different for every person. But so that was an avenue for me, and like I said, it's an individual journey. That for me, that trauma therapy was really, really important to unlock why I was having such difficulties.
I find that, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I find that so interesting that you say that like the trauma it can be so many different things from what we sometimes perceive it to be. It is very personal, and it can affect you in such a subconscious way. And it's so interesting to investigate those things for yourself, to question what you've been learned, what you've been going through, and how that influenced who you became at one point. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, completely. And I think it adds, honestly, this might sound controversial and I need to learn more about it, but the more I learn about it, the more I think that we all have trauma to varying degrees and intensities, but we all have things inside. It's something that's happened to us in the past that still affects how we think and feel moving forwards. And maybe there needs to be a different word for it, it's like micro trauma or something else. But because I obviously don't want to downplay people that have had significantly intense like experiences. But yeah, I think it affects all of us. What's your experience of, I know you talked earlier about how you've done a lot of self-work also, and about how you've been prioritizing your mental health recently, like as a result of this shoot to fame and also lockdown. So what has your journey for that been like? It sounds like you've done a lot of self-work.
Absolutely. And I think I've even done so much more work than I'm even realizing already. And it's really because before I did take little holidays before, like in January, I did take little holidays because I thought it's been a very hectic year. Now, I must say, for example, that our season of Drag Race It all happened really fast because because of COVID, dates were delayed. So everything then all of a sudden got pushed into this pressure cooker. Also with with airing and with everything afterwards. It all happened so fast, and we had to work so much throughout that year that um, we all needed a holiday, and we did. But I think even in that holiday that we gave ourselves, we didn't allow ourselves to really relax and to really let go of everything that has been going on for a while. And I think now for the first time, I'm starting to learn to let go, to always have to be productive, and I'm starting to learn that my value as a person doesn't depend on my productivity. I'm still a valuable person even if I'm not in the place where I can constantly be productive. And I think the kind of culture that we live in now, especially since lockdown, we're so much more online. We're so much more on Instagram, especially as the queer community. We find each other online, and that's a beautiful thing. There are so many beautiful things about it because we can discover new artists. We can even make new friends. We can connect through different types of mediums. But the downplay of that is that we constantly need to be there, constantly active, constantly showing up, and that's not always in every phase the most healthy thing to do as a person, in my personal experience. How does that go for you?
I can, like, on the point of being online constantly, I completely agree, and I actually have severely reduced the amount that I'm online over the last year, and that's been like a really important thing for me to do, um, and really focusing on like my immediate surroundings and the people actually in my life. Um, but yeah, I agree with you. It's also an amazing tool. Like, we're having this conversation right now because we've never met in real life. So
Absolutely.
I guess the balance, isn't it? Like, I feel it starts to sound very hippy dippy, but everything comes back to balance for me. And I think you talked about dualities before, how you like explore dualities in your work or polarities. And I think about
Yes.
those though, that no one thing is bad or good, no one thing is healthy or unhealthy, and it's more about finding that right balance for you. And that's how I feel about online as well.
I feel like you're really super knowledgeable on all of those things. I'm learning from you, so thank you.
Oh, thanks. I feel like I'm learning from you beating your face right now. You're like turning into it.
Damn, I'll show you. I became very muscled over the last year.
Yeah. How long?
Yeah.
How long do you think the look is going to be in total? Because you're going to continue after we keep talking.
Oh yeah. And so, as you might have noticed, I've been bald for the past 2 weeks, and actually, it's opened up so much room for me, both literally and creatively. It's really funny, mm, but that does mean that I have now an entire head to paint, rather than just the face, and then put my wig on. But I really like where it takes me, because there's like, look at all that room that I have to paint. Like, the canvas doesn't end. It just doesn't end. I feel like James and James. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. A lot of people would have to spend like an extra hour putting on a bald cap in order to get that. So it's a huge benefit. It's like
Oh
you've
yeah.
just gone to the store and bought a massive, like a canvas that's 3 times bigger.
Yes. Exactly.
And so how long does the look usually take you? Because we're going to be talking for about an hour, but it's going to be longer than that, right?
Yeah, so I think my look today is gonna, generally I take up to like an hour and a half to 2 hours to do my face. I have in the past done it in 1 hour, but I think with the bold face and all the shapes that I'm gonna do today, it's gonna take a little bit more time. So I think it's gonna be like maybe, yeah, like I think like a 2 hour job. It's gonna be today.
Nice. And do you have plans for it afterwards?
Yeah, so I'm gonna just create some content. I'm gonna make some nice TikToks, and make like this really cool new photo. But also, I'm just like basically just practicing how I want to work with my new bald face.
Yeah. Nice.
So that's the main thing. Just try out different things, and I think yeah, really focus on creating the art that sits exactly where it excites me. Um, you know, so
Yeah.
that's been my mind lately. Like, do exactly what I want creatively without compromising to anyone's expectations. And I think I've been doing that consistently um, throughout my drag career, but at the moment I'm doing that a little bit more than usually, which is a good thing for me.
Has that been more challenging the more eyes that you have on you? Do you ever feel like a pressure to go a direction that isn't where you actually want to go, like authentically yourself?
Oh yeah, obviously, because Drag Race, of course, has this format that is a that the format asks for you to appear in femme drag, like as a female impersonator. At the end of the day, of course, the area is getting more gray throughout time, which I think is a really good thing. We have, of course, queens like Gottmik, and Bimini, who's um, very gender fuck in the way she presents her drag, and I really love that development, but there can still be a thing where, yeah, you're expected to present your drag in a certain way. But even though I was on Drag Race, I'm still gonna create the type of art that I want to present. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess because the reason I ask is because I feel like even for people when you are very true to yourself and you have like a vision that you want to be authentic to, it can still be hard when you have thousands of people like pressuring you, or even like a few people in authority, such as in the case of Drag Race. Like I've experienced it myself, where I like to follow what's right to me, but it can be very hard to create something when I know it's going to be less well received. Or like I've entered competitions before where I know that I felt this pressure to like not dumb down, just make more traditional the work that I do, and
Yeah.
it can still, I guess for me anyway, it can still be hard to like stay true to yourself when you have those outside pressures.
Yes, I very much feel what you mean. It can really, yeah. Sometimes you're not even fully aware because it can kind of influence you, and then you see yourself doing it, and at one point you're like, wait a minute, that's not where I wanted to take it. But then, that's fine. You don't have to judge yourself in any way when that happens. I think once you realize that, you can take that information and be like, hey, wait a minute, let me. I do this all the time. For example, when I started doing Chelsea Boy, I started doing these type of faces: a white face, a blue contour, and for a long time, I kind of felt like I should be doing something else. And now, like, why would I tell myself to do anything else from the face that I want to do? And the thing with that is as well, like, it shows. It shows in the way that you carry your art, as we talked about before. It shows in the way that you carry your art, how enthusiastic you are about it. Like, so yeah, the closer my art is to where I want it to be, and what it says about me, the more, um, yeah, the more powerful it is, the more powerful it becomes, because you carry something that's much more sincere and much deeper to you as an artist. Um, and I think that eventually, like I said, is the goal for me. So that's something that I want to, yeah, keep finding back, even though sometimes I feel like I'm being put off track. Do you know what I mean?
Mm, mm. And yeah, something you said a minute ago struck me about how you can, even if you do go a little bit off track, like that's okay. You know, it's not like you've doomed yourself. It's like you can be kind to yourself and say, okay, I did allow myself to go a little bit away in that moment, but that's okay. I'm going to refocus now. And I really liked how you said that, because that like self-compassion, I think, is so important in everything.
Yeah, like reminding yourself, like, oh, I kind of went a different route. Am I still happy with that route? Do I want to go a different route? Or do I want to remind myself of how I used to do it before? And that is all valid. No answer is wrong. Like, again, go with your gut. If you feel like um, it benefits you to take your art in a direction that you think benefits your goals better, then of course do that. But I think it's much more powerful to always uh, to create your art as close as possible to where you know your heart to be.
How do you, what do you think the tools that you use in order to explore that are? Like, how does it feel when you are like fully in yourself, as opposed to when you're doing something like inauthentic? Can you just feel it on this like physical level, or is it more of like an emotional thing?
Well, it's kind of, it kind of comes back to you at the moment where when when I'm doing something that feels very close to me, when I feel very um, um, sincere about the type of art I'm doing, then that also resonates in the results and in the way um, um, I'm trying to find the right words, in the way I am successful. And then, of course, successful is very relative to what you want it to mean. But um, when I want to accomplish certain things, for me, when I look the way I want to look, because it's more close to my heart, then it helps me achieve my goals easier. Rather than I'm doing something that I'm not, then there's often something in the way of where I want it to go.
Mm.
I don't know. That might sound a little bit vague.
No, it sense. I'm processing it because it's like, I think what we touched on is, say, art, right? It's so subjective, it's so personal, but we're still trying to either communicate something or like work out something in ourselves. So there are still goals to it. We're not just like doing things randomly in a meaningless way. So it's kind of like within yourself finding a way to navigate that and to understand what it is that you're doing. Because, say, if you can't necessarily trust other people's feedback because, for example, they want you to be more traditional than you want to be, or they might not understand what you're doing, we can't always trust the subjective response we get from the outside. So we have to find a way to trust within ourselves.
Uh,
So that's kind of what I was like getting at with the question to you, and you answered. It's like what that feels like to really trust yourself, and how that then affects the outcome for you. Like you can tell when you've created work in which you've trusted and been authentic with yourself because you can see it in the work. Is that
yeah,
right?
I think that's kind of what I wanted to express there. That if you mean what you're creating, the result it's gonna be elevated to such a different level. It exudes so much more power and vibrance and joy, and you don't even have to do anything else for it except for celebrate that and just create it from a place of honesty, and then it will take you there automatically. It's
I
that
love that.
simple.
Yeah, it's very like useful, isn't it? I've thought this before with like art expression of yourself. It's like you're literally creating a visual or whatever it is that is like a representation of what you are processing in your mind. So that's very useful to have this like this image or this piece of work or this dance to then be able to look at and say like, oh, that's what's going on in me.
Like
Um,
following that, yeah, it's the only way. It's the only way. Well, for
oh,
me.
no, it makes sense for me. I'm processing as well because I've been going through a period of being more experimental and to meet what feels to me authentic and like on a journey that you describe for yourself as well as this never-ending journey and a lot of this is really resonating and like how to stay true to yourself and how to navigate that. Um, I think it's a journey that we all go through, whether we define ourselves as artists or not. We're all
Yep.
on this journey of discovery.
Oh my god, my hand and eye coordination are so interesting.
How's that?
Well, I never went here, you know what I mean? I never went there, so this is also new. It's not just the entire, it's also the like hand eye coordination of drawing a line where I want to draw a line. And I'm drawing a line right here today.
Here and in the mirror, like getting that flip is really
Yeah.
tricky.
And then we wanted to go. Okay, so I wanted to go there. Yes, that's it. Boom. That's where we wanted to go.
They're really like you're making really bold and like brave lines, like one swoop like that. It's cool to watch.
I'm going off a face chart today. I'm not gonna show anyone yet. I might show it later when it's finished.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how it turns out. I wanted to back to something that you touched on earlier when we were talking about this like the recent kind of like mental health and like scheduling that you've been doing. Have you mentioned what sounded to me a bit like maybe not perfectionism, like the valuing yourself based on your productivity and having to re-examine that. Where are you with that at the moment?
At the moment, I think that is the lesson. That is the lesson that I'm learning right now, and it's not a lesson that is something that it clicks at once. It takes some time, and I think that's exactly what I'm going through now. Whereas before, I would take a holiday. I would tell myself, okay, Brian, you need to rest. You need to chill a little bit. You need to calm down from everything that's been going on because it's a lot for one person. But I didn't really allow myself that because I was thinking, no, now is the time. I need to push it. I need to pressure myself into producing as much as I can because I'm gonna miss out. And then now I'm just like, I'm gonna miss out on what? On what? I'm a happy person, and I just want to create beautiful art and connect with people, and that's ultimately my goal, and that will make me happy. Um, so I think that is a lesson that I'm going through now, and it's a tough one because I keep going back to it. And that's the thing, mental health and your lesson. Sometimes a lesson, it's not a binary thing. It's not like, oh, I've learned a lesson now. You're gonna keep going at it, and I think that's growth. Growth for me means that you can look at the same things with different eyes. So you go back to something, you're like, fuck, I'm still doing that. You know, after all this time, I'm still doing that one thing that I thought I learned, but I hadn't. You know what I mean?
I 100% do. There's so many. I still feel like I'm learning lessons that I've had since I was a child or a teenager, like things that I consciously remember. And there's like, I think of it as different depths of processing. So it's like, even when the lesson is consciously the same, it's like over time, it's just getting deeper and deeper. or it's being configured in a different way. But
Yeah,
100%. Sorry?
yeah, and it's getting set into your system. It's sinking into your system step by step.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I had a conversation with a friend of mine who is a qualified therapist and working, and she said that within her like understanding is that we do all have our own like hamasha, our like challenges in life, and that in some ways that is going to be for your lifetime. Like this is your particular challenge, your particular way of being, and it's going to keep changing. But I think it's about like self acceptance, that like things that you have for yourself, like that is a part of you, and you can make it better, you can improve it, you can manage it in different ways, but you're never going to completely change and be an entirely different person.
Nope. It's annoying, isn't it? So annoying. Like, I'm not that person anymore. Yes, you are.
Very that. That's a vibe.
I think it's beautiful. I'm enjoying every bit of it.
Yeah, it's
So maybe questions on mental health from our viewers. Drop them in the comments.
yeah, I haven't been keeping up too well with the comments, but people have been saying really lovely die. I'm just scrolling a bit now. Yeah, I would think one of the things you said about so what you're currently going through, right, with learning about productivity in yourself and like not always pushing yourself to like allowing yourself to rest, essentially.
Yes.
It's something I've been thinking a lot about recently too. That's like a challenge I also have in my life, and I think that it can be particularly hard when, say, your livelihood is based upon productivity and you're receiving so much praise from other people, and it's also that's all can be linked to productivity too. So even people, when they are really well intentioned, can kind of cement in this idea of like, oh, I am worthwhile because of what I produce, as opposed to like who I am myself. And obviously no one intends to send that message, but what is it? The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yes.
I get,
but I think that's kind of also what we're telling each other with the way we decorate our online lives, like the way we what do we praise, what do we choose to praise in others. And I think that's might be an important question to ask yourself is what type of things do I value and appreciate in others. And I think that can tell you also a lot about what you will see as validation or appreciation of your life. So that kind of reflects, because if you go for stunning looks and fashion and makeup and that's the only thing you value, then I think you might get insecure about yourself because you don't uphold to those same standards of everything that you see online. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if you look at how someone is growing through what things somebody's going through, and how they're doing it, and how they're evolving as a person, or how they're, even though they might be scared of something, they're expressing it online or whatever. I think that is something super powerful that I think should be celebrated much more, rather than just aesthetic.
yeah, I love that. I think that's so true, and it's like what we see and project in others is also about what we're seeing in ourselves. So I
Yep.
think like thinking about what you complement and value in others can speak a lot to yourself. Then also, I think that's really powerful.
Yeah. So I think we should start a revolution, David.
You know, I have actually. You say that has made me think that whenever I go to a new town, because I do murals as well. Whenever I go to a new town, it's like thinking about who I want to paint, who's local. When I can paint a local queen, and the first question I think of is usually like, who's nice, like who is supportive in the community, and like that's who I really want to uplift. And I hadn't really thought about it before, but that really is like that's a projection of my values. Like I want to uplift people who are nice and supportive, not necessarily who like are the fiercest and whatever, even though that's cool too. So
Yes.
yeah, you just made me think about that. It's praise niceness.
Yes. Absolutely.
So I think we're coming up to the time to wrap up now, but I want to say I've really enjoyed this conversation, and
Absolutely.
I'd love to continue it, and I'm excited to reflect it in this visual form. It's such a mess right now. I can kind of flash it at you, but this is like a fancy block, so like what? But yeah, I'll be finishing that and posting soon, and I'm looking forward to see how that comes out, and I'm looking forward to seeing how your face goes. It's looking beautiful so far. Oh my god, it's so good. The red and blue is such a powerful combination. It has that whole like
strong, right? It's like, damn. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining me today, and I really enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I had an absolute joy. It was a wonderful conversation. I learned a lot of new things, and thank you everyone also for watching, for tuning in.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. And everyone make sure to follow. If you're not, obviously you are already, but if you happen to not be, follow Chelsea Boy, XO Chelsea Boy on Instagram. And and we will see you all soon. Bye.
Mwah.